Imagine catching up with a few of your friends. All of you are happily chatting away, and you are intently listening to another one of your friends' crazy stories. But before you even realize it, your mind starts wandering to the article you read in the news this morning, and your friends have to wave their hands in front of your face to get you to snap out of it. This experience is a common one for most people, and is known as zoning or spacing out. When you zone out, you tend to start thinking about a totally random subject that is unrelated to what's right in front of you. But why do we zone out, even when we know that we should be paying attention to whatever we are doing at that exact moment? Well, the answer is hidden in our brain's cognitive processes and networks. Welcome to the Thought Waterfall Podcast. I'm your host Sharvi, and let's jump right into our episode today. Let's start off with a quick definition of what zoning out really is. Zoning out is when you are disengaged from your surroundings, and you aren't fully aware of what's going on around you for a brief period of time. You seem to be daydreaming or lost in your own thoughts whenever this phenomenon happens, and you may get a faraway look in your eyes. But before we get into why we zone out in the first place, we'll have to take a closer look into our brains to see how it happens. As a matter of fact, there is a special system of regions in our brain that is responsible for when we get lost in our thoughts and start daydreaming. This system is called the default mode network, or DMN for short, and activates when we are not engaged in our surroundings. Due to the DMN shifting your attention away from your task to your thoughts, other parts of the brain that are responsible for doing those tasks are less active, causing you to zone out. But once you snap out of your daydream, the DMN itself gets deactivated, and you can start paying attention again. So now that we know what's happening in the brain as we zone out, let's get into why it happens. Psychological factors including stress, boredom, and feeling overwhelmed may make you zone out. This is because zoning out can be a way for your brain to cope with whatever you are dealing with, and take a break from emotional stressors that affect your daily life. Additionally, if you do not get enough sleep, you may feel more mentally fatigued and be more likely to zone out. Finally, even having an information overload can cause you to zone out, as your brain may need to take a quick break between analyzing all that excessive information. Too much overwhelming info can also trigger anxiety and stress, and we already know that zoning out is one of the ways our brain copes with that stress. But is zoning out a good thing or a bad thing? Well, it depends on just how frequently it happens. If you zone out once in a while, especially if you are overwhelmed and tired, it's completely normal and even beneficial in some ways to your brain. Aside from coping with emotional stressors, zoning out can also let your brain rest and recharge, plan for the future, and boost your creativity. This can all help you solve problems faster and more effectively. On the other hand, if you zone out more frequently and it starts affecting your life on a daily basis, it might be a sign of an underlying mental health condition. This excessive disconnection from your surroundings is called dissociation and can have various undesirable effects on your life, including less productivity, difficulty remembering certain details, being seen as distracted by others, and safety risks, especially when driving or operating machinery. So if you feel like you've been spacing out more frequently lately and seeing negative effects on your daily performance, consider contacting a professional for help. Now, is there a way to not zone out? Of course. To avoid getting mentally exhausted, you can take frequent brief breaks while you work to stay productive for longer periods of time without getting too tired. You can also try to limit your multitasking and break up bigger tasks into smaller ones to not get too overwhelmed. During conversations, you can actively be involved and create lists of key points in your mind to remain focused on the speaker's words. Even prioritizing self-care, meaning eating a healthy diet, getting enough sleep, etc., can help you not zone out as much. And to get back into the zone after spacing out, you can try breathing techniques to shift your attention back to the present moment and activate your sensory senses by washing your hands with cold water or sucking on something with a strong flavor. This just goes to show how random our brains can be and how they can lead us to do the strangest things, like zoning out, even when we don't intentionally mean to. Zoning out is just one of the brain's many tricks and really shows how our mind is capable of doing anything. Well, that's it for this episode. To recap, zoning out is a common experience that includes a temporary shift of your attention from your surroundings to your inner thoughts. This happens when a system in your brain called the default mode network becomes activated, and other task-related networks are less active, causing a loss in focus. There are several factors that can trigger you to zone out, including stress, fatigue, and information overloads. When occurring only once in a while, zoning out can be harmless and even help your brain cope with emotional stressors, recharge, and boost creativity and problem solving. However, if you feel like you've been zoning out excessively, consider checking with a professional for underlying conditions. Finally, to avoid zoning out too often, make sure to have a balance of work and play and take care of yourself. And that brings us to the end of our podcast today. Once again, I'm your host Jarvi, and thank you so much for listening to the Thought Waterfall Podcast. I hope you learned something new, and remember, you are truly capable of unlocking your potential, one thought at a time.